France is looking to fill in the U.S. void and has been promoting an initiative in the past few months. The French assumption is that the direct negotiations are at a deadlock. So there is a need for international intervention. And the French answer is the UN Security Council resolution, which calls for an 18-month timetable for a final status agreement. And France is also threatening that Paris will recognize a Palestinian state if this process fails. Just earlier today at the weekly cabinet meeting, Netanyahu says that the UN Security Council resolution is a dictate that would harm Israel's security. So this is the backdrop for their meeting this afternoon. On the other hand, Netanyahu actually needs France at this moment in the context of the Iran negotiations and the emerging Iran deal. France has been taking the most toughest stance amongst the P5+1 members, and Israel very much appreciates this. After Cairo and Jerusalem, the French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius begins his final two legs of his 36-hour shuttle diplomacy tour of the Middle East in crucial meetings both here in Ramallah and in Jerusalem later on this evening. Fabius's main goal on this trip is to promote the French UN Security Council resolution that sets an 18-month timetable for a final status agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. But both key partners, both Israel and Palestine, have some problems with this initiative. The Palestinians, on their part, are demanding a much more harsh language in the initiative and are concerned that France might be softening the wording in order to bring upon American support for the initiative at the UN Security Council. On the other hand, the Israeli Prime Minister again today reiterates that Israel rejects any attempt to dictate the conditions of a final status agreement and adamantly opposes any attempt to internationalize the conflict because he says it will hurt Israel's security. But Fabius intends to tell both leaders that continuing this conflict and the current stalemate does risk setting the conflict ablaze. We will be continuing to report from Ramallah and Jerusalem throughout the day. Back to you. French Foreign Minister begins his final leg of this 36-hour shuttle diplomacy tour of the Middle East here at the President's residence and receives quite a warm reception from the Israeli President Reuven Rivlin. But Rivlin does not hide his disagreement and the Israeli government's disagreement with the French initiative to bring a UN Security Council resolution in the upcoming months. Rivlin tells Fabius that Israel appreciates the French effort to bring an end to the conflict, but disagrees with the attempt to internationalize the conflict and says that this is just a way for the Palestinians to dodge direct negotiations. Fabius, on his part, says to Rivlin that he asks Israelis, probably in a message to the Israeli Prime Minister and to the Israeli public at whole, he asks not to prejudge his proposal, and he says we're not trying to substitute direct negotiations, only to kickstart them. Finishes and concludes this visit with quite a lengthy press conference in which he presents the French ideas and the French initiatives. He does try to clarify that his initiative is not a replacement or is not intended to replace direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, but to assist them to kickstart negotiations. But he does clarify the international role that France sees in this attempt to restart negotiations. First of all, Fabius talks about an international committee that will be comprised of Arab states, EU members, and of course the United States that will accompany the negotiations. But he also gives quite a long time to discussing the UN Security Council resolution, revealing that France does not see any sense in promoting a UN Security Council resolution if it will not be implemented or if it will be vetoed by the United States. He says that he did clarify this to the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He does say that both the Palestinian President and the Israeli Prime Minister did reiterate their will to renew negotiations, and that is why he says that France is not giving up. He does say that France knows it's difficult, and he says we are no Don Quixote, but he says France will continue to fight for peace. It's a worthwhile goal, and we will continue to fight for it because the peace between Israel and the Palestinians is crucial also for peace in the region.